We've had stories where people have said for 20 hours their loved one didn't see anybody. We've got people who are being admitted to hospital with bed sores that have gotten so bad that they've gone septic. And folks actually don't survive with those situations. These things are unacceptable. So we're going to look at the hours of care, and we've made that commitment already. We're going to look at the regulatory system and whether or not it's meeting the needs to ensure that we are keeping a proper look on what's happening in long-term care day in and day out. We're going to look at the staffing ratios, how many residents to staff and what the mix of staff is, nurses, PSWs, for example. We're going to try to make long-term care a good place to work. We're going to look at whether or not there's a difference, and some studies show that there is, in the quality of care provided in privately run for-profit institutions or for-profit facilities versus not-for-profit facilities. These are all some of the pieces that we're going to look at, and we're going to allow, through the course of the public inquiry that we expand, we're going to allow the person that's responsible for the public inquiry, and we have a judge that's doing that now. We're going to make sure that she has the ability to listen to and get input from families of people who are in long-term care, because this is one of the criticisms that we've heard from families now, is that their voice overall, unless they were part of the Wettlaufer situation, their voice has not been heard. We're going to change that. Families need to have input into that process, as well as frontline workers. So these are some of the pieces that we're prepared to expand the public inquiry to address. And in that process, if there are things that family members and frontline workers are bringing to the mix, then we're going to address it. We're not going to shove it to the side and say, well, that's not in the mandate. The mandate's going to be broad, and it's not dissimilar from the Walkerton mandate. When I don't know if you remember the Walkerton situation, but when the public inquiry was called into the poisoning of the water, or the water system in Walkerton, it started off as being just an inquiry into that particular community. And then when that work was near completion, it then expanded to talk about safe water quality around the entire province. So not dissimilarly, this inquiry that's underway right now is specific to Ms. Wettlaufer and the crime she committed, and we're going to say, that's fine, that needs to be done, but let's then expand afterwards and take a look at the entire long-term care system.
Andrea, the NDP have come close, I know, at least a couple times in Ottawa Centre to winning the seat over the past 20-25 years, but it hasn't. There hasn't been a New Democrat MPP here since 1995. I don't think there is an Orange lawmaker east of Ajax, or Oshawa.
Oshawa.
Thank you. And
she's our eastern toehold.
Right. Absolutely.
We're going to change that.
So that's what I'm wondering. I guess I'm wondering, what are a couple ridings you're hoping to establish as beachheads, and is Eastern Ontario a genuine battleground for the NDP?
Well, I mean, I think more in terms of, can we bring change to Eastern Ontario the way we can bring change to every other part of the province? And I think that's what this election's all about, and that's the choice that people are going to have to make come election day. And I'm proud of Joel, and I know that people are excited to show support for him in this riding, and I think he's going to be able to let the people of Ottawa Centre know that they can have change for the better with Joel as their MPP. And I think that's something that's going to happen across the province, whether it's right here in Eastern Ontario, whether it's in Southwestern Ontario. We've just come from Northwestern Ontario. No matter where people live in our province, it's clear that folks want change. And the issue then becomes, what kind of change are we going to have for the province? Are we going to have change that genuinely helps people to build a better life here, or are we going to have change that drags our province backwards and that makes the rich even richer and has everyday families paying more out of their pockets for the services that they should be able to enjoy in a province with such prosperity as Ontario?
Mad, disgraced. disgruntled about high taxes, gas taxes. You don't seem, correct me if I'm wrong, do you propose tax relief?
Can't hear!
So the question was it doesn't seem that our platform addresses the concern that folks have about high taxes, and gas taxes particularly were mentioned. What we are concerned about is that families cannot seem to make ends meet, that families continue to struggle, that no matter how hard they are working, how hard they're trying, life just keeps getting tougher, and people are at a point where they can't even put anything away for the future. In fact, folks are telling me that they're really worried about the next generation as well. And so what our plan does, it doesn't pretend to provide relief. As I said, Mr. Ford's plan will give $18 in tax relief to any family earning under $49,000, where the bulk, the preponderance of his tax relief is going to the richest amongst us. We don't need that. We've had years of flat wages in our province. In fact, Ontario's at the bottom of the barrel in our entire country when it comes to our wages, and the fact that we've not had an increase in the value of our wages over the last decade. That's not acceptable. That is not acceptable. So, yeah, we are going to make sure that people have the things that they need to live a good life. So they're not going to have to shell out of their pocket to buy a prescription. They're not going to have to shell out of their pocket to get their dental work done. In fact, we're here in a long weekend. One of the other things that is in our platform is to say that we're going to stop the gouging at the pumps on long weekends. You know, we're going to stop that gouging. So although we're going to make sure that that our transit systems are going to be, for example, funded and supported through the taxes that come from gasoline, what we won't allow is the gas companies to gouge residents of Ontario because summer's coming or because a long weekend is coming. I mean, there's no way that you should be driving home on a Thursday night with 1,000 things on your mind, rushing to get home and worried about, you know, what you're going to put on the dinner table, having to stop at the grocery store, and then, you know, being a block from your house and realizing, uh-oh, I forgot to get gas, and I know tomorrow it's going to be up 2 or 3 cents or maybe even 5 cents because it's the long weekend. That should not be happening. So we're going to get rid of that gouging, and we're going to make sure that people have a clarity about what the price of gas is going to be. So we're going to set the gas price either on a Sunday or Monday, and then that price will stay the same until the following Sunday or Monday, so that people have, you know, a sense of what gas is going to cost them, and they don't have to worry about getting to the pumps before a spike because of a long weekend.
And you're just wondering, how are you going to do that? Is that going to be enshrined in law? Is it going to be a set of rules? Is this price fixing by any other?
Well, no, it's not really price fixing, but what it is it's saying that we won't allow the industry to on a whim and for the purposes of you know, sucking more profits in an opportune time to do so at the expense of everyday people who have no other choice but to get into a car and fill up the tank. And so this is something that actually takes place in other jurisdictions. We're certainly not the first jurisdiction to contemplate that, and we'll look to what those other jurisdictions are doing in terms of implementation. But what I wouldn't want to do is put something in place that then is easy for the next government, you know, way down the road to undo, because people deserve better than that. And I mean, I know that this is happening in places like Northern Ontario and Southwestern Ontario, and I would be surprised if it wasn't happening here in Eastern Ontario, where you're driving along the highway and you're going to stop at a particular town. You stop, you decide to get gas. Then you're going to go a little bit further, maybe visit some relatives, maybe, you know, visit another community, and you get to the next destination, and all of a sudden the gas is, say, 5 cents cheaper. And you feel like you've been ripped off because you just paid 5 cents more, you know, 40 kilometers down the highway. That's got to stop. There are regions, certainly, that, you know, that are different in the province in terms of the cost of getting gas to the distributors, but within those regions, there shouldn't be a wild fluctuation between the gas at the pumps. And so we're going to look at that too as part of our stabilization of gas prices for Ontarians. Absolutely, absolutely. It's part of our capital plan as well. And you know, it gives me the opportunity to say this. You know, there are things that the Liberals have done that we're going to stick with because, you know, they're things that we agree with. But there are many, many things that we don't agree with and that need to be fixed. There's much damage that has been done to our province as a result of the Liberal government's 15 years in office. So we are not going to mess with the things that don't need to be fixed, but the things that need to be fixed, we are going to fix them and make life better for Ontarians and make life better for people here in the Ottawa. Make the point though, on top of the capital investments, our capital plan in terms of transit and other infrastructure is equally robust. It's the same as what the Liberals have put out there. But the difference with transit is this: we acknowledge, New Democrats acknowledge, that municipalities have a hard time making sure that transit is as convenient as it should be, as frequent as it needs to be able to encourage people to get out of their cars and use transit systems. So I want to laud the City of Ottawa for the great work that they're doing to try to beef up the transit system with the LRT and get people out of cars and make that transit more convenient. It's going to cost money to operate your expanding transit system. So not only will we be there with the capital, but we've made the commitment to take on the operating costs, 50% of the operating costs of municipal transit systems. It's something that used to be the norm in our province. Mike Harris and the Conservatives got rid of the operating subsidies for transit systems for municipalities. New Democrats recognize that that our capital city and world-class cities like Toronto and every community that has a transit system needs some support from their provincial order of government to help them keep those transit systems viable and to help people make the choice to get out of their cars and onto their buses and streetcars and LRT systems and subways. And so 50% of the operating costs of the Ottawa transit system will be covered off by the Ontario government under an NDP government.